Okay, do you want to know why Donald Trump keeps invading American cities and why it is escalating right now? It's not hard.
The president's poll numbers are lagging on jobs, as you might imagine. Then again, they're lagging on a lot and have been for a while. CNN chief data analyst Harry Etten is here. Sir, you see something of a pattern here.
I do see something of a pattern. Sometimes we lose the forest for the trees, but I want to look at the forest, and it is one ugly duckling forest that we're looking at for Donald Trump. You know, look at this. Negative net approval rating for some. You know, we talk about one poll, the CBS News poll. We talk about another poll, the NBC News poll. Nuh-uh. Look at the aggregate polls and look how long Donald Trump's net approval rating has been negative. It has been every day since March 12th in the average of polls. We're talking about 181 days in a row in which Donald Trump has been underwater swimming with the fishes.
181 days straight of being underwater on his approval rating. That means more voters hate him than like him. There's more.
Look at the issues. Look at this. These are all the key issues. Donald Trump is underwater on all of them. Trade, obviously, tariffs have been a big thing at the bottom of your list, minus 17 points. The economy, which was the reason he was elected to his second term to fix the economy, way underwater at minus 14 points. Foreign policy, minus 12. And then I think, Mr. John Berman, the key two issues at the top, because these have been Donald Trump's strongest issues, crime and immigration. But get this. He is now underwater on both of these issues, if barely, but he's underwater on crime at minus 2, immigration at minus 3. On all the key issues, he is again swimming with the fishes.
Swimming with the fishes on every single issue. He is doing dreadfully in terms of public perception. It's not normal. Mostly presidents at this point in their term have high public approval because they're fairly new and they're really trying to do good things. Trump has accomplished nothing except for a tax cut for rich people and enriching himself. Voters are noticing, and you'll notice that he's underwater on every single thing, but the economy and inflation are the worst. So what is he focusing on? Crime and immigration, where he's got the highest approval ratings, even though he's still underwater. It is obvious, it is a trick, and we need to be very clear that while his invasion of blue cities is real, and it is grave, and it will have life or death consequences, it is also a distraction from the fact that he's failing across the board. He's flailing, he's desperate, and he doesn't want you to notice that people hate him. It's a cheap, pathetic trick, and it may work for a little while, but don't take your eye off the ball. He is doing what he's doing because he is failing. Never let him forget it, and tell everyone you know.
United States government is instigating violence on the American people. And the sooner you all realize that, the sooner we can come up with a fucking plan. Donald Trump and Tom Homan are saying they are now about to purge blue cities. Why are they going after blue cities? Who lives in blue cities? Let me tell you something. They are going after not only illegal immigrants, which I hate the term, but those are their words. They are going after black and brown people. They are going after the LGBTQ community. They are going after Democrats. Donald Trump is not qualified to lead this country. Donald Trump does not know how to be a president, which is why he calls himself a king. He does not know how to be a president for the American people, for all American people, which is why he is a fucking dictator. He can't get shit done any other way other than to bully and fucking destroy our lives. The sooner you MAGA people realize this, this doesn't just impact us. This does not just impact the woke liberals. He is coming after you. He is coming after the people you love. He is coming after your paycheck and your pocketbook. Get prepared.
Hello everyone, it's Anthony here, no relation. So, during the campaigns, Donald Trump said that enemy from within, the enemy from within, and he has started coming for the enemy from within. And where is this enemy from within situated? In blue cities, and that's what he's doing at the moment. And you have seen the data from CNN and the other commentator. They claim that Trump ratings has been tanking for 181 days because his policies don't seem to work out as he expected. So he is directing this anger, his weakness towards the blue cities, expecting that it will shift the audience attention from what's happening, from the tariffs, from low jobs reports, from everything.
I'm out here in the farm fields of Illinois. This is a bean field that just turned brown in mid-September. And there's a lot of concern over where the product that these farmers in Illinois have raised is going to be going and what kind of price they'll get for the crops they've raised. I grew up in this area. I went to Little Cayman High School. It's about 2 miles north of here. And I went to school with all the farm kids, and I even grew up in eastern Pennsylvania and went to school with Amish and Mennonite kids in Lancaster County. And growing up, I had an uncle who ran a farm in upstate New York. So I have some history with an empathy for farmers, because I watch how hard they work to get this crop in the ground, and its timing and the rains in spring, whether they come or not. One year it was too wet, the next year it's too dry. It's tough being a farmer. But what's even tougher is growing all this crops and having all the equipment and debt you need to be a farmer, and then be cast aside by things like tariffs. And that's what's so confusing to me. The people out here in farm country, a lot of them have Trump signs in their lawns. There's a huge one up the road here. When I'm cycling over the summer, I see them all over the place. Probably see 10 to 20 in a 40-mile ride. And that indicates to us that farmers are big into Republican values. And that's the other side of the coin here. You know, what is the ideology driving people to want to be Republican? Well, over the centuries, you know, that we've had farming here in the United States, there's been a lot of deception by conservatives. You know, the Dust Bowl came about because people were told to go on out, God will help you, and rain will follow the plow. And that was a lie. And what we wound up with is agricultural conditions that basically turned the entire Great Plains to dust. And there's sort of a similar thing going on in Illinois, in many states, because soils are not in a great condition here either. And there's this sort of been this profit-oriented idea that it's your job to go and grind up the soil and get what you can out of it, get the best price for it, and we'll take care of the rest. You know, it's that classic sort of go, go, go ideology that people pride themselves on in America. But, you know, sustainability is a real problem. That's true in terms of economic markets, where a lot of crops from the United States are sold to other countries, for example, China. And now we've imposed tariffs on China, and guess who winds up paying the price? It's Illinois and Iowa and Wisconsin and Missouri and Nebraska and all these farmers that, you know, work their lives trying to sustain their crop output every year. And Trump doesn't care about those people, but what he does do, and this is sort of his method, he has never had a good grasp of forecasting policy. He bankrupted casinos, for instance, right? And many, many of his businesses failed, and those that did sort of succeed were dependent on creative bookkeeping. The guy is not a good planner. He could never be a good farmer. He sucks at everything he does. But somehow he came up with this let's do something about our markets idea with tariffs, and they've never been proven to work. And right now, something like 86 to 90% of the tariffs are being absorbed not by foreign companies, but by Americans paying higher product prices. And the farmers are the ones that get kicked right in the nuts. And what does Trump do? He uses taxpayer money to pay them off for the fuck-ups that he did. And that's the sick aspect of it. And all these guys with Trump signs out here, they're happy to ask for handouts now when many of them apparently don't like, you know, the idea that immigration people come here and, oh, they're using our tax dollars. Blame immigrants for everything. Well, guess what? A lot of our farm production, especially things like fruits and vegetables and everything, are reliant on immigrant workers. And so Trump is so fucking dumb about what really happens here on the earth that he's screwing everybody over. And these farmers out here, you sort of have to have empathy for them because they've been lied to. They've been deceived. And we need small farmers as well as big farmers. But during Trump's first term, when he first messed up with farm markets, Sonny Perdue, his Secretary of Agriculture, said to American farmers, tough luck, go big or go away. And so corporatized farmers, farming, and the seed crops owned by giant firms like Bayer and Monsanto and all of that are taking over. And if we don't have any local control over how food's produced, we're at the mercy of all of that, the corporatization of America and the oligarchy. And if you don't connect these dots and see that people out here are being deceived, and these are the same people basically voting for Trump, then you don't get it. Where will these crops go? We really don't know. They may rot in the bins, in the dryers, everything.
This ice raid at the Hyundai plant is problematic for a lot of reasons. Let's talk about it. This is going to have disastrous effects on the surrounding area to this super plant, the state of Georgia, the country. That's just economically. When it comes to the world stage, South Korea was an ally. So let's back up a little bit. South Korea has a super plant in Georgia. It is the largest foreign investment in the state of Georgia's history. And Georgia has a lot of money in it. So this was an investment by South Korea, and they had 475 nationals working on this plant. ICE did say that they detained 475 illegals. We do know a majority of them were working on valid visas. So let's talk about how that's going to affect the economy, not just in Georgia. I don't talk a lot about my career. I am a nonprofit professional. I do go into a lot of plants. I go into a lot of plants, warehouse centers, factories, distributions, and I love that part of the job. I love seeing plants and how they operate. I always ask for a tour because it's just amazing. So I go into a lot of rural areas. Did you know in Deckard, Tennessee, did you even know that was a city? There is a Nissan plant there. There is a Nissan plant. So this is happening in small rural communities around the country where we have foreign investments in those communities on a larger scale. I was in Clarksville the other day and I met people from LG, foreign company here. I go into these companies and I ask, hey, so how many nationalities are represented at your company? How many languages are spoken? I hear a lot of things, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese. These are companies, large international companies that are investing in our local economies. It's not just, investing in the US's economy. They're investing in our local economies because they are bringing people in, they'll bring in jobs in for one. They are also using our labor, our U.S. labor to build these plants. They are putting money into our economy. They are using our power. These companies bring over employees. They bring over skilled employees to do the jobs that most of the times Americans cannot do. So it's not like they are taking jobs away from Americans, because I can guarantee you, I have been to a lot of plants, a lot of factories, and there are foreign nationals there, but they are not doing all of the jobs. They are doing the very skilled jobs that Americans cannot do, creating a lot of jobs for Americans at these facilities. They are putting money into our local economies, our state economies, our U.S. economies. And let's talk about the fact that Hyundai is South Korean. That's supposed to be one of our allies. They have had to send diplomats over to handle this situation. South Korean nationals. What does that say on a larger scale to these other companies? I live in Middle Tennessee. We have 2 Nissan plants here in Middle Tennessee. What does that say to Nissan? Is North American headquarters is in Nashville, Tennessee. What does that say to them? We are a red state. If they don't feel like their company is safe here, what's going to happen. We've already seen what's happened with American companies and the tariff situations. You know, you look at these big companies like Jack Daniels is made here in Middle Tennessee. They had to lay off a lot of people. And this is a company that has always been a very secure job for their local community. That's not the case anymore. I look every day and I see companies with mass layoffs here in Middle Tennessee, here in Tennessee in general, and it's disheartening. But when we're taking away jobs from these foreign nationals because of their company's investment in our economy, it's not helping our job situation. They are not taking jobs that normal average Americans can do. These are highly specialized jobs. We're not, so I don't know if this is this in relation to the horrible jobs report? I believe our jobs is down, for the first time since COVID, since the pandemic. That's upsetting. And I'm sure some people are like, great, that's 475 jobs that Americans can do. These are not jobs that Americans can do. They are not jobs Americans can do. These foreign nationals coming in as part of their country's investment into our economy is not for average Americans. So yeah, so we have essentially pissed off a world superpower who was allegedly one of our allies. We are already laughable on an international stage. Other countries laugh at us, and that's because of Donald Trump. How does this look now for people to say, oh my gosh, this is their ally, that we're supposed to be working together, and we are detaining? When I say we, of course, I mean the United States government. We are all responsible indirectly with what is happening with these ICE raids. We may not support them, but this is our country this is us doing this to people. So what's going to happen in Georgia? There's going to be less money going into the economy. So when people talk about illegal immigrants, no person is illegal, first of all. And so when we talk about the impact immigrants have in a community, it's going to be instrumental for other companies, especially South Korean companies, pull out of U.S. investments and go to a country that is friendlier, literally friendlier, like maybe, Canada and things like that. But this is going to hurt your local community too. I urge everybody to just go search your community, your state, and see who the largest employers are in your state. What companies have put the largest investments in your state? And I think you would be surprised. Like when I look and see what companies have moved production or even American headquarters to Tennessee, there's a lot of companies. There are a lot of companies. And if they don't feel safe in our country, and again, these are not onesies and twosies immigrants. These are countries sending their literally best and brightest because of their multi-billion-dollar companies coming here. It's a rant at this point. I'm just talking, but it's wild to me that people are okay with this. People are applauding. Again, these 475 Korean nationalists are not taking jobs from Americans. We can't even do those jobs. At the end of the day, it's wild. But I highly suggest everybody, I highly recommend everybody, a quick Google search. Type your city, largest employers, your state, largest employers, your state, largest investment companies. I urge you to do that, to see that it's not all American companies. There are foreign companies that are investing in our state and local economies.
So how do you expect a large multinational company not to have their expatriates here? Yes, it's a large international company, so they have to send some representatives from overseas to come to the local place to supervise the work, yes, to some extent, during the construction process. And the Trump's policies is affecting all that. And they claim that if you invest in America, there will be no tariffs, and it will ease the process of your work permits, the concession permits, everything. It will make it easy if you invest more than $1 billion US. And this Hyundai plant was investing $7.6 billion US to Georgia. And the local governor there, Brian Kemp, was aware of everything that was going on there. And the governor himself is a Republican, a staunch Republican. So do you mean that these are guys who are doing construction there in a company where even the governor was interested because they want to improve the livelihoods of Georgia people? So do you believe that they were breaking any laws? The governor himself was even not aware of what was going on there until a Karen snitched on them, saying that they were illegal workers and they were snatched and they were sent back to South Korea and all of that. It's messy out here. And so even the farmer claiming that the product is ripe, but there's no market. So the product will have to rot in the bins because no one is buying from the tariffs. The prices are high from the US. So we are in deep trouble out there.
So a massive story broke just before the holiday weekend, but hardly anyone is talking about it, and that really needs to change. So as I'm sure you know, Trump has promised over and over again to never touch Medicare.
I'll save Social Security. I'll save Medicare.
Well, guess what? He lied. Because on Friday night, he and Dr. Oz, who's the administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, confirmed that they are going to fundamentally change Medicare, and not in a good way. They are launching a pilot program that will require senior citizens to get prior authorization for some healthcare services, and here's the kicker: artificial intelligence will decide whether their procedure is approved or not. What could go wrong? To quote this Truth Out article, prior authorizations already exist in the privatized Medicare Advantage system and with standard private insurance, and we know they cause delays and denials of critical medical coverage. They're a nightmare. Now, in case you didn't know, traditional Medicare rarely asks for prior approval. That's why it works so easily and well. That's why we love it. But Trump doesn't want us to have nice things. Oh, wait, and I haven't told you the worst part yet. These AI companies will be paid based on the value of the procedures they reject, meaning AI companies will profit from denying needed care to seniors. So literally, the more claims they deny, the richer they get. It's like a cash incentive to deny your claim. These companies donated massively to help Trump get elected. Now they're getting paid back at our expense. It's disgusting. And the outcome of all this is that your grandmother or your dad or your sister or even you could lose a vital medical service because a computer decided that it wasn't worth covering, even if your doctor said it was. These AI pre-approval programs are going to roll out this January in 6 states listed right here. The pilots will reportedly be limited to about 17 procedures to start, but if they achieve their goal, denying your healthcare and making AI companies rich, they'll expand to more procedures and more states. Do you remember when the GOP invented the term death panel in the scare campaign to stop the Affordable Care Act? It was false, but we never heard the end of it. This, on the other hand, is actually happening. Trump is rolling out AI death panels. He should never hear the end of it. So call your members of Congress and tell them that it's not okay. And share this story far and wide so people can make a lot of noise. Every promise Trump makes, he breaks. Don't let him break Medicare too.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some fuck around and find out. We saw it in North Carolina and Texas when Trump massively cut FEMA. We saw it in Missouri when a Republican congressman was yelled at by his own constituents to get his head out of Trump's ass. Well, now it's time for Fuck Around and Find Out, the Farmers Edition, specifically Arkansas.
Now, I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
He said, I love you, Mr. Trump. I need to see the fruit of your love.
What it costs for us to farm is astronomical now.
I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm.
After a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
We made a decision to go out this year in the spring. So my son will not be the seventh generation on our farm.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here. It's everywhere.
Now I know not everybody in Arkansas is a Republican or a MAGA voter. But remember, Kenkel's McTaco Tits won that state by nearly 30 points. So the majority of people in Arkansas voted for this. And now these farmers, many of which have been farmers for several generations in their family, are finding that due to climate issues, deregulation, Trump's tariffs, and immigration crackdowns, they are losing a good 30% of their crops. And this is affecting farmers in many negative ways. The biggest one is that the largest agricultural export of ours is soybeans, and now it's at a 20-year low. But the sad thing is that a lot of these people still voted for him in November, even though he already did this to them once. In Trump's first term, he fucked over the farmers so badly, he had to issue $32 billion in bailouts. Only now he's telling them, suck it up, loser. And the hilarious part about this is, remember when Mike Johnson and the other Republicans in Congress were saying, you know, we need you guys to come out and vote in the midterms because if there are Democrats get control of Congress, Trump might get impeached again. That's now starting to work against them because all the people who are turning against Donald Trump are now using that as an encouragement to come out and vote so he does get impeached again.
Now, I don't want to take too much of y'all's time, but I want to get into something real quick. Donald Trump, just a month or two ago, fired the head of the Department of Labor and Statistics. And he fired her on the grounds that the job reporting numbers that the Department of Labor and Statistics was sending out was unfair to him, and that it made Donald Trump look bad, and that these were all Biden plans. Fast forward to August, we just got the latest jobs report for the United States, and the goal was 80,000 jobs. Folks, we only added 22,000 jobs. Now, this recent job report was from someone that Donald Trump appointed, and it's worse than it ever has been. So explain to me who's really the problem here. Maybe these tariffs and Donald Trump's crap job of economic policy is the problem, and why prices are going up, and why people are not being hired. Just some food for thought.
A recession happens every time a Republican enters office, and it's now reported that there's more unemployed people than there are job openings in America. And the unemployment rate for adolescents aged 16 to 24 has reached 10.5%. If you're struggling to find a job, I promise you're not the problem. Deadass, I had a recent job interview with Entergy, right? They're this electric utility company that operates throughout the South. I make it all the way to the final round of interviews. And then the interviewer at the end says, hey, we'll let you know within a week whether or not you got the job. Cool. Fast forward 2 weeks go by, I don't hear a word from them. So I just send a nice follow-up email, pretty much just asking for an update. Y'all, they tell me, actually, our entire interview panel loved you. You were our first choice candidate. However, in light of recent economic policy and a change in management, our department is going on a spending freeze, meaning no new hires. Y'all, and fortunately, I had other job offers, but like I was still pissed because it's like they were my number one.
Republicans are bad for our economy. That's a fact. During both Trump's presidency is when we have seen the largest debt spike in our history. Trump is a huge borrower. And when he was campaigning against excessive government expenditure. He came up even with DOGE, DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, which claimed that it cuts into most of the government waste, which is a fallacy. After even DOGE did their work, Trump went on to pass the largest bill we ever had in the history of our country. 4.6 plus trillion US dollars expenditure. At the moment, the amount we are using to service our debt is more than we are spending in our military. And the Trump campaigned against that. So you ask, does this guy have a stand? Does this guy have a principle? Or is just another scammer around? So our God-chosen president, will he be able to get out of this mess? Our Moses, our Messiah, our Savior, Donald Trump the Baptist, will he be able to get out of this mess? So tell me in the comment section if you think that Trump is good for our economy or bad.
The U.S. Department of Labor is issuing some devastating economic numbers. Just last week alone, 263,000 people filed for initial jobless claims. This is the highest in nearly 4 years. Also, prices are going up across the board. In August, the Consumer Price Index went up of a 2.9% annualized rate. This was higher than expected. And when you go down into specific items, the cost of beef in August went up 13.9% compared to August of last year. And coffee rose 20.9% in August compared to August from a year ago. Of course, this is just the labor shortage and tariff impacts just starting to hit the economy. For more analysis on this and other topics, check out my videos on the Midas Touch YouTube channel.
Trump's economy is starting to show up, and many economists are pointing to jobs data and inflation, but I would like to redirect your attention to the macro and help understand why what's occurring is not just bad or potentially recessionary, but potentially quite devastating given our national debt. I'm going to try to keep this video under 5 minutes. And with that, I'm breaking this video into 3 parts. First one is, what was Trump's plan with the debt? Second is, what is essentially plan B and the current economic outlook? And then the third one is, what is bound to happen now? Now, I first need to start with understanding the debt. Everyone needs to understand where the debt and why the debt is so important. We are in something called a debt doom loop. Essentially what that means is you and I, the people, need to be able to pay back the debt that we owe the money to. However, in order for us to even come out and be able to pay the debt instead of just paying the interest on the debt, we need to have extreme economic growth, or we need to cut back on a lot of expenses. And that's where Trump's plan, the first point, really was. He talked about and passed legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill, along with the Genius Act, to be able to essentially hyper-grow the economy. The United States economy grows at roughly about 2 to 3%. In order for us to get out of the debt into a place of stability, we would need to grow roughly 5 to 8, maybe even more, 9, 10% per year for the next, give or take, 7 to 12 years. And just given the sheer size of the United States, anyone can look at that and say, well, short of essentially an AI and automation boom, that's pretty much impossible. So that covers point 1, which Trump's plan was to try to hyper-grow the United States economy. Now, given the fact that the current economic outlook right now is jobs are starting to be cut, and we are looking more towards the fact that we are coming to a recession, I want to really drill this into your head. Nowhere in the plan was there to have a recession. It was to have extreme economic growth, 5, 10%. So given the fact that we are most likely headed or in view of potentially having a recession, that leads us to, then what is plan B to get rid of the debt if it's not economic collapse, or what we know in the economic world as called a default? Well, there's 2 ways to get rid of the debt. There's growing out of it, or there's something called inflating the debt away. Now, we're all aware of Bidenflation, or honestly what it really was the cough inflation. So the reality of the situation is Biden inflation hit about 9%. We all remember this as being like prices are just soaring through the roof. Where here's the thing, in order for us to inflate the debt away so that we don't fall into a default, that would have to become the norm, especially if we fall into some form of a recession. So what does inflate the debt away really mean? Well, that means essentially over the next 10 years, we have to have our currency, the money you hold in your pocket, literally has to be debased. It has to go down in value, which means prices have to go up. Again, if this doesn't happen, then we risk a default on the debt. Now that you understand what was his plan and what is plan B, well, given the fact that we are looking at an economy that, again, there was no plan for a recession, well, if we're headed into a recession, or even if we just have stable growth of 2%, this is what's bound to happen. The regular worker, the regular person is bound to see their salary essentially go down in value. So if you're making $60,000 a year, what feels like $60,000 now, given Biden inflation, $60,000 over the next 5 years will feel like 40. I also want to keep in mind more macro and a little bit of geopolitical. I want to throw this in, is tariffs. Tariffs are not inflationary. What they do is they risk relations, business relations. And so what we're now seeing with the tariffs, it's not inflation. It's a one price hike. What we are seeing though is countries are starting to become isolationist as well. So I want everyone to understand there's essentially 2 ways that this can occur. Number 1, the external forces start to get off the dollar as the dollar begins to lose a lot of value compared to other things like gold. okay? Which that means the United States will become more imperialistic because the amount of money that's in supply of other countries, if they stop using it, that supply of money isn't going to just dwindle. No. That's just going to continue to debase the currency, causing even further inflation. So the United States, in order to keep countries on the United States dollar, will have to become imperialistic or risk even worse inflation than what is already thought to be needed. Now, this leads to the internal component, the internal strife, which is essentially wealth inequality in the United States is already bad. You look at something called the Gini coefficient, and we're sitting at, I think, last time I checked, was in the 40s, mid 40s, something like 42, 43, which is bad. Essentially, wealth inequality is bad. Now, if you begin to inflate the debt away, which means people who don't own assets, who just make a living wage, if you begin to inflate the debt away, that means their economic situation gets worse because their money becomes of less value, while at the same time, assets like gold and stocks and things like that the wealthy own will continue to go up, which will cause even further wealth inequality between the haves and the have-nots. Which, if you look through any history, when the socioeconomic situation of a country is so unequal, it almost always leads to some form of violence internally. So, pretty simple conclusion I want people to kind of wrap their head around is this. The plan was to grow out of the debt. Now, given the fact that we are showing signs that is not happening, let alone we are potentially headed into a recession, that means we're going to have to print more money in order to keep the economy afloat, which means even more inflation. And given the fact that even more inflation is coming, then that means more countries are going to question whether they want to own the United States dollar or whether they want to become isolationist. And tariffs are going to continue to build these geopolitical strifes between the East and the West. So the key fundamental principle to understand is your money is losing value, and it is going to continue losing even more value at a quicker and accelerating pace as things like a lack of growth in the economy and things like more money is having to be printed to cover the debt. So please understand, when economists say, hey, inflation is coming, this is how and this is why. Okay? Alrighty. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you want to have a conversation about this went for 9 minutes. I'm sorry. Hopefully you guys learned some things. Alrighty. Take care.
I don't think people realize how quickly Trump is tanking the economy. When Trump took office, he inherited the strongest economy for an incoming president since George W. Bush. Job growth was booming, wages were up, inflation was down, and the stock market was climbing. Fast forward to today, and Trump's tariffs and his economic agenda have thrown everything in reverse. The new jobs report is brutal. The economy added just 22,000 jobs in August, about 50,000 jobs short of expectations. But the revisions for June and July were even worse. For the first time in 4 years, since the last time Trump was president, the economy actually lost jobs. And it's hitting some of our most important industries the hardest. Over the last 3 months, we've lost 31,000 manufacturing jobs, 13,000 mining jobs, and about 10,000 construction jobs. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is raiding factories and stripping legal status from 1 million immigrants, which in their absurd theory was supposed to help the most vulnerable American workers. But black unemployment is now at 7.5%, the highest in 4 years, and youth unemployment for 16 to 24-year-olds is at 10.5%. And it's not just jobs. In July, we also saw one of the biggest monthly spikes in inflation, which is now at its fastest pace in 5 months. And families are feeling it, with back-to-school supplies up 7.3% this year. And to put the cherry on top, after Trump inherited 12 straight quarters of economic growth, our economy actually shrank in the first quarter of this year, and has remained slow as consumers brace for even higher prices. A lot of Americans held their noses and voted for Trump, thinking that he'd fix the economy. But like everything else with him, his thirst for power and control has led to utter chaos. And unless we call it out now, he'll continue to lie and drive our economy off the cliff. So share this video and follow me to stay in the loop.
I spent most of this winter in South America. I just got back in the other night, and I want to relay this message to all our friends and government officials and people we worked with all over the world. I want to tell you the same thing I told the South Americans the other night. Please do not come to the United States. We are not the same country. we were 4 months ago. It is not safe here anymore. They can pull you off the street. They can detain you. They'll do God knows what to you. They're doing it to our own citizens. They will do it to you. Please do not support American products. Don't buy American. Don't vacation here. I'm very sorry to say this, and I want to apologize on behalf of all rational Americans in this country who are fighting Trump tooth and nail with everything we have. We're sorry. We're doing the best we can to get rid of this guy. And all his crooked cronies, but we're having a very difficult time doing it. We handed him the keys. An ignorant populace handed him the keys to this kingdom, and we're finding it very difficult to even slow him down, frankly. I think America's done. I hate to say that, but I don't know how much.
As we come to the end of this video, do you think really that we are in a bad state as a country at the moment than we ever have been? Are we really in a bad state? People are losing their jobs. People are losing their farms. People are losing their houses. People are losing their Medicare. People are losing their food stamps. People are losing everything. And the conservative claim is that we must keep on procreating. We must keep on procreating. But how do we keep on procreating if the conditions in this country, even someone cannot feed himself? How do you expect to feed another offspring? How do you expect population growth when you have made it almost hard for the common man to make it in this economy? How? Or how do you expect it? College kids are graduating. They're not getting jobs. You graduate as an engineer, and then you end up working at KFC or at Burger King. You graduate as a scientist, you end up becoming a teacher. So, as a parent, look at your kid at the moment. Is he suffering? Is he or she struggling, or are they drowning? You know, there is a difference. When you're struggling, you are trying to make something happen. When you're suffering, you're working something out. Either it might go bad or good. When you are drowning, you have nothing to work with. Yes, you have nothing to work with. When you're drowning, you have nothing to work with. So guys, thank you for watching my videos. It means a lot to me. Subscribe, comment, like, share your thoughts. This is a public square. Be free to share your thoughts. This is a public square. And tell me, what do you think about the situation in our country at the moment? What do you think? 3 jobs and you can't live a good life. 2 jobs, you can't live a good life. No job, man. You are struggling. People are moving to live with their parents again. Because if you're not married, you cannot afford to buy a house. You cannot afford to live. And then you're called the enemy from within. You're not working hard enough. That's what you're being told. You're not working hard enough. Man, you're working hard. It's only the pay. And when we say, let's have a fixed minimum wage, there will be problems. Because the billionaires will use that as an excuse to increase the price of things. It will be an excuse. Yes, people are saying that we have the same federal minimum wage since 2009, 16 years ago. But if you try to mess with the federal wage, the billionaires will use that as an excuse to cause further inflation. You saw the tariffs. Tariffs, an increase of 20% is causing these corporates to increase prices by 100%. So either way, we are damned. We are damned.